All right, welcome back to Pre-Algebra. We are in Chapter 1, Section 3, Solving Simple Equations.
An equation is kind of like a set of scales, right? And whatever you do to one side of the scales, you have to do to the other. So if I'm going to add something on this side, right now it's balanced. We have a bear on one side, a bear on another. If I add a weight on this side, I have to add the same weight on the other side to make sure that they are balanced.
So with the addition property of equality, you can add the same number to each side and the equation remains true. So if we had a bear on one side and that was equal to the weight of the bear on the other side, we could add 3 to each side and it is still balanced. It's still true. Or in more abstract terms, if we have a number a and that's equal to something else, some b, then I could add the same thing, c, to each side, and it's still true.
Now the same thing goes for subtraction. The subtraction property of equality says if I subtract the same number on each side, it remains true. So if I take off 3 on one side, I have to take off 3 on the other side.
So the subtraction property of equality means that you can subtract the same number from each side and the equation remains true. So if we take away the 3 again from each side, then we get back to b equals b. Or if we had something like this where we have a quantity on one side and another quantity on the other side, if we take away the same number from each side, then it's still true or still balanced. All right, let's look at a couple of examples. We want to solve x minus 7 equals negative 6. All right, x minus 7 equals negative 6. Okay, now we're subtracting 7, so we want to do the inverse operation. We're going to add 7 to each side. That cancels out the 7, then we get x is equal to negative 6 plus 7 would be 1. And then over here we've got x plus 3.4 is equal to 0.5. To solve this, we want to subtract. We want to do the inverse operation, so we're going to undo this. Subtract 3.4 from each side. Subtract 3.4 here. This cancels out, and then y is equal to negative 2.9. All right. Now here we have pi involved, but that doesn't change anything. H plus 2 pi is equal to 3 pi. We want to find what the value of h is. All right, so we are going to subtract 2 pi from each side. That cancels out this 2 pi, and then h is equal to 1 pi, or h is equal to pi.
If I double up how many bears we have on one side, then I have to double up how many bears I have on the other side. Right? Multiply this side times 2, then I have to multiply this side times 2. So the multiplication property of equality says you can multiply each side of an equation by the same number, and the equation remains true.
The multiplication property of equality says you can multiply each side by the same number and the equation remains true. So if b equals b, then b times 2 is b times 2. Or if a equals b, then a times 2 equals b times 2.
Same goes for division. Let's say if 2 bears equal 8 of these towers of 3, then I can split this side into 2, right? Take half of that side off, split this side, divide this side by 2, take half of that side off, and then we're still balanced.
The division property of equality says you can divide each side by the same number and the equation remains true. So if we have 2 bears on one side and they weigh 8 units, we could divide both sides by 2, and then we get 1 bear equals 4 units. Or if a equals b, then a divided by 2 equals b divided by 2. Let's look at a couple examples here. We want to solve y over 4 equals -7. Y is being divided by 4, so I want to undo that by multiplying both sides by 4 times 4. Now you can show the multiplication using the x, a dot, or parentheses. All right, so this 4 is going to cancel out here. Then I get y is equal to -28. Over here we have -3/4 n is equal to -2. Now to undo a fraction, n is being multiplied by this fraction, but we want to undo that. So even though it's being multiplied by that fraction, I'm going to divide by the fraction, which means multiplying by its reciprocal, so 4/3. So multiplying this, that means the 3's cancel out, the 4's cancel out, negative times a negative equals a positive. So multiply this by 4/3. Multiplying by a fraction means multiply by the top, and then divide by the bottom. So 4 times 2 would be 8. So n is equal to, the negatives cancel out, negative times a negative equals a positive. So then we have 8/3. All right. Here we have a multiplication. 4y is equal to 28. Y is being multiplied by 4, so I'm going to divide. Divide by 4 on each side. That cancels this out. Y is equal to 7. If I have an unknown variable, unknown quantity being multiplied by pi, then I'm going to divide by pi. X times pi, we're going to cancel out pi. Now pi is a number, but in this case we're treating it a little bit like a variable. Cancel out the pi, you can cancel out that number over here, because a number divided by itself is 1, and then we get x is equal to 3. All right, let's look at example 3. We want to identify what value of k makes the equation true. Okay, here we have a few suggestions, but we can just go ahead and solve it and then pick the right answer. So k plus 4 divided by 0.2 is equal to 5. First thing is we're going to simplify each side. Notice here we have like terms. The positive 4 and the 0.2, we can divide these. All right, so we're going to do 4 divided by 0.2. And that is 20. Now, k is being added to 20, or 20 is being added to k, so we want to subtract 20 from each side. The 20 cancels out. K is equal to -15. All right, so that makes A our answer. All right, example number 4. The melting point of a solid is the temperature at which the solid becomes a liquid. The melting point of bromine is would use the symbol equals, is 1/30 of, is the operation, of is a multiplication, of the melting point of nitrogen. All right, I'm going to write that out the way we had it here. Melting point of bromine, I'll just call that MB, melting point of bromine, is 1/30, 1/30, of means times the melting point of nitrogen, melting point of nitrogen. All right, that's just the concept here. Write and solve an equation to find the melting point of nitrogen. Now, we're given the melting point of bromine over here. We know the melting point of bromine is -7. So -7 is equal to 1/30. And now we're just going to call the melting point of nitrogen, we'll just call that N. All right, 1/30 times N. Okay, now we want to get rid of the 1/30. I told you we can multiply a fraction by its inverse, or in this case, 1/30, the inverse would just be times 30/1, which is also just 30. All right, so we can multiply this by 30. So then Our fractions cancel out. The 30 cancels out. This 30, we're left with n is equal to negative 210, or the other way around, n is equal to negative 210. So the melting point of nitrogen is negative 210 degrees. All right, just a term. You've heard me use this. Inverse operations. Little vocab term for you there. That's one operation that undoes the other. Inverse operations. Addition and subtraction are inverse operations of each other. Multiplication and division are inverse operations of each other. All right, that's about all the fun we're going to have today. Check in again next time for another fun lesson in pre-algebra.